Thank you very much for having me here. I am one of the founders and the Chief Operating Officer of DXMarkets. We have been working on the last few years, first with cryptocurrencies, then with blockchain, and recently with the financial companies that are interested in the technology and how it applies to them. So there are a couple of things that I'd like to share today. One is first, what do we do with these companies? And there are three areas that we have been relatively active, I'll say. The first one of them is cross-border transactions, which I think that if you've seen all the activity that is around remittance and blockchain, you could see that has been a lot of interest. The second one is digital asset issuance, which is not all that known. But in essence, one of the things that we realized is that blockchain has the ability of making more efficient to securitize products that before perhaps wasn't overly efficient to do so. And the third one is consolidation of wallets, or just asset consolidation into single portfolios through wallets or other applications that allow you to seamlessly move across assets in a more fluid way. Something, again, that while it was possible to do before, technology makes it a lot easier now. So perhaps you are familiar with this phone and with the inventor. Maybe you know what technology I might be referring here with this phrase. I think there was a quote from David Birch that he said that Swift technology predates the birth of Taylor Swift. So that phone is a good 30 or so years old, about the same time where Swift was first introduced into the interbanking communications and transactions. Very robust platform. However, it was invented in a time where fax and telex were a thing. It is not to say that it doesn't work today, because that would be to say that all the interbanking back and middle office is using something else, which it is not. But there are better protocols that can be used, and it's simply that we haven't had or we haven't seen yet the adoption. But it's not to say that there aren't more efficient architectures. So there are a couple of use cases that I want to present here, and more than anything, based on some of the attributes that the blockchain has. I'm not going to talk about how it works. I'm going to talk about what it does. And disintermediation is one of the biggest features, where you can remove certain players and make things a little easier, a little more direct, in the same way that you transact, and if I go and I give a £20 note to any of you, you'll have that money. If you want to do something similar through the banking system, there are a lot of players in the middle. Blockchain allows, to a certain extent, to remove some of those players, and that allows to do a lot of things and to level the market in very interesting ways. So, for example, if you're thinking about emerging markets, there are companies like BitPesa that are looking into how to do micropayments using even brick phones to transact in Africa, where the amount of money, if you think on a hard currency term, will be too little to justify the transaction. So if a SWIFT transaction to send money to the US costs you $20, and you need to send a payment that in effect is a cent of a cent of a cent, it doesn't make sense. However, blockchain is much cheaper, and it is the platform that companies like BitPesa are using to start sending money in countries that are non-bankerized at all, because it's simply not cost effective. In the other side of the spectrum, you have my former colleague, Ms. Blythe Masters in Digital Asset Holdings, that is trying to use blockchain to replace all the middle transactions, or, well, all middle office and back office really, and to make the settlements and the interbanking more efficient. Asking or answering to the question that was raised before, she's looking to target directly SWIFT and replace it. Or maybe she's looking for a exit by getting them to buy her. We don't know yet. It's yet to be seen. But there are also more direct applications, like the one that I'm showing here. That gentleman there in the high-vis jacket put a billboard there saying, "Hi, Mom, send Bitcoins." We don't know if Mom sent him Bitcoins. What we know is that plenty of other anonymous senders piled up to $20,000 that this gentleman received. And it's not a hoax, unfortunately, or thankfully, you can go, and because it's a public ledger, you can check what happens. You can see the hash and see that actually plenty of transactions coming from all sides of the world. I think that was on the Super Bowl, but I'm not 100% sure. A lot of people say like, okay, brilliant idea, I'll send him some money. So this is what I'm talking about, disintermediation, and how powerful it is, because it goes from this level to developing countries to investment banking for the most powerful players in the industry. So that's where I think that the technology is fairly powerful in a way. Another of the area that I'm going to try to cover quickly before taking too much of this evening is the management of illiquid portfolios. So one of the things that, as I said, the low friction system that you have in blockchain allows to do is to either go from multiple asset allocation into a single ownership, or the other way around, multiple ownership of a single asset. It's not that you couldn't do it before, but the tools in which you can instrument it from an operational perspective are more efficient, which means that you can do it for less money. And you can start securitizing things that you couldn't before. The products that we have been working with some institutions, particularly in Switzerland, are wallets that allow them to integrate several things. So either if you're talking about a multi-commodity dashboard, if you're talking about loyalty points incorporated into your cash, there are things that are possible. And that is not to say that in the future you won't be able to have your, I don't know, airline miles together with the cash in your account, together with a percentage of the ownership of a house, because it's easy to move the assets from one side to the other. But there are more interesting examples and a little more bizarre. So as you see, one of the things that we have on our side is football player. And that's something that actually we had a company wanting to securitize. We helped a company to build digital units for a football player. So now you can co-own one of the lead strikers in a football team. Strange as it may sound, if you think that a football player is a non-valuable asset, depending what club we're talking about, probably you need to revise your math. If we go on to the other side, it's something that is a little more traditional, has been seen, which is the real estate market. Plenty of crowdfunders right now, plenty of interest, and again, plenty of operational savings that you can do by instrumental distributed ledger. So if we go into some of the platforms that we are currently working on, one is working on fine arts as an asset class. And what we're trying to do, and again, this is a platform that is about to be released, yet not up in the market, is to treat fine art investment as something more attainable for investors that don't want to go through the hassle or the trouble of understanding fine arts, or to have to pay a 30% buyer's premium as you go if you need to engage with an auction house. Another of the platforms that we're working on is, as I said, real estate. And at the moment, we have not only investors, but real estate developers that are willing to put a full portfolio of properties into the blockchain, just because for them, if they are working at the moment with REITs or any other vehicle, doing so through a blockchain is much more cost effective. So these are some of the things that are happening now that the technology is allowing to do. And it's not to say that we're changing the world in a direction that hasn't been seen. It's just that we're making the transactions that we all know how work to run better. So that's one of the normal quotes that I tend to put in all the presentations. It really doesn't matter how blockchain works, at least for my view, but what it can do for the companies. And while I can spend probably 3 hours talking about cryptography and lines of code and smart contracts, if you don't understand what kind of process you want to replicate or improve, it's of little use for people. I think that when we have more people like the guy just putting the billboard up there and saying, okay, I want to de-intermediate and just benefit from that, we'll see the adoption starting to take place and eventually the technology progressing. So I'll leave his quote from Bill Gates. I don't know, he seemed to be a visionary at some point. And again, I think that we can't really ignore what's happening now. And we need to think that perhaps right now we won't see from morning to night all the investment banks changing all the technology in their back office. They invested way too much money to get rid of it. But I think that we'll start seeing change a lot sooner than what we expect. Gentlemen, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Hi, Raj David. I'm in the credit brokerage business, and I'm interested. You showed that picture of a house. How many users do you have on that blockchain site?
Excuse me?
The last image that you showed of the house or a property development.
Oh, we haven't launched our platform for real estate on blockchain yet. But I mean, probably you would like to see what is happening on the crowdfunding right now. If you check on companies like Property Partner, Cogress, that's the ones that I can think.
Sure, but they're not blockchain.
No, they're not blockchain. But the thing is, the principles are actually the same, pretty much. So, and again, I don't think that, if you ask me what are the amount of users, 0, because the platform is not in the market. What is the potential users that we expect to have? As much as any of the other platforms, because ultimately, to the end user, the technology doesn't really matter.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys.